the last 2 class sessions, we have discussed another more gentle and patient approach to mental and emotional discomfort. Whether in relation to another person or to our own thoughts and feelings, the suggestion is to reconsider and perhaps question the need to aggressively get rid of our mental or emotional pain. Instead, beginning to explore an approach that goes beyond resisting, fighting, controlling, forcing, or running from this pain. What would it mean to approach this same pain, whether in ourselves or in a loved one, with more acceptance, compassion, and generosity? This brings us back to a really important question. What difference does this approach really make? It sounds nice and all, gentleness, compassion, but in the case of painful thoughts or emotions, how is that even relevant, let alone helpful? Does it have any real documented, concrete effects? Let's start by hearing from the real experts, those who have faced painful emotional and mental problems in their own lives.
At the time I was working in San Francisco at a really great school, and I'd gone to a retreat, a weekend retreat. The instruction in meditation is, as the mind wanders, you bring the mind gently back to the feeling of the breath in the body. It's a very basic awareness of breath meditation. Always working with the mind, the wandering mind, right? And then these big episodes, emotional episodes, observe it, bring the mind back to the feeling of the breath in the body. So we're learning to relate to our thoughts differently. And I think, I'm getting it, I'm understanding it. And then I knew after that weekend, I lived over the Golden Gate Bridge, I had to drive home. And I have a little thing about heights, little thing about bridges. There's one little turn after you travel, when you travel to the Golden Gate Bridge, where you really just can't turn around and decide you're not going to go over the bridge. You got to go over the bridge. And I'd passed that point and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a full-on a panic attack. I was experiencing panic attacks regularly, and the dissociative effect of all of that, it was very scary. So this anticipatory thing sat upon me and I was like, oh, here it comes. I had this moment where everything stopped and I just felt that emotion. I felt the anxiety swell, and then I just watched it as it passed away. It's almost like I didn't try, that I had been training, and just as I was about to have what I was very used to, this feeling you get, some feeling that an anxiety panic attack is coming, the hyperventilation, the intensity, the sweating, the dissociative kind of feel like nothing fits together, and I'm going over a bridge. My gosh, it was all coming. And it came, and it was as if I could just watch it and not be a part of it. I just watched it go. I had that peak of emotion, right? And it didn't kill me. I could go through it. And the whole difference was I didn't get involved with it. I didn't get on that wave and ride it. I let it come and I let it go. I didn't add to it. And it was, I remember saying to myself, this is what they're talking about. This is it. And I got it. And I thought, this is the work. This is the work I have to do. And that was a pivotal time for me. A really pivotal experience. I'm going to cry. Sorry.
In my experience, it's been the willingness to just be really open and honest about what's coming up and to allow them to come up. It doesn't mean to act on them. It doesn't mean to act the anger out, but to just acknowledge that that's happening in the body, that that's our experience right here in this moment. There's such a power in welcoming that. If we can just let that activate, let it well up, let it get really big, and listen to what it's saying, we find over time that these emotions, after welling up, they just kind of dissipate, they die down, and before we know it, we're back to this calm.
When practiced consistently, this new stance toward pain, discomfort, and darkness can lead to some surprising discoveries, especially this one. Depending on how we approach painful emotions, they can actually come, then go, like the weather we mentioned earlier. This deserves some more explanation.
Emotions feel like really solid things, and some emotions perhaps have been with us for a long time and they tend to characterize our experience in life. We find that when we look really closely at them that they're changing all the time. What seemed really solid, what seemed really opaque, it's actually maybe misty, but in constant change. And that the awareness, the willingness to be present with an emotion, it actually softens it. It actually gives it a kind of permission to activate and to kind of do whatever it is that it wants to do. Whether it's anger showing up in the body, whether it's sadness showing up in the body. How often do we really just take a close look at the activity of emotion in the body and give it permission to just do what it's doing? After all, our only other option when it comes down to it is to deny it permission and to push it down into that cellar where we keep all those unwanted emotions, only to manifest in our dream world or in an inopportune time, in an inappropriate place with a certain person we wished we hadn't said that to. I mean, if we don't face these things, if we don't make room for them, do you really think it goes away? So I've just found this practice of letting emotional activity well up and expand and grow and just show up in me in whatever way it wants to be so empowering, because every time, if I'm willing to stick with it, if I'm willing to stick with that movement quality of the emotion, that eventually at some point, like all things, it exhausts itself. It burns out, it uses up its life force, however you want to describe it. It was there one moment ago, it was getting bigger, and now it's getting smaller, now it's, where did it go? And we can ride those waves. We can come into a relation with our emotions in a way that we're not making problems of the negative emotions, and we're not clinging on to the positive emotions and wanting more, but we're just vitalized again and again, continually, by the emotional activity of the body. And that's some satisfying emotional wave riding.
To review, then, this kind of gentle, self-compassionate awareness can have a significant, tangible impact on emotional pain. Some more examples may be helpful.
As the mom of 2 young kids, or one at that point, one child, and a high-pressure academic job at an Ivy League institution, it came to a point where I had lost feeling in my teeth from grinding. And I'm a professor, so it ended up that I could not actually give a lecture because I couldn't actually feel my front teeth. And to the point where I just wanted to quit all of it. I said, I'll just go do something else. I don't care because this is not working for me. And I'm not a happy person. So before I just quit my job entirely, there were the little whispers of the idea of neuroplasticity in my own mind, that you can actually change the brain. Even if you don't change anything about the circumstances of your life, there may be some way to change the way you think about your life. If that's true, I gotta give it a try. I'm a brain scientist. I spent my entire life studying the brain. If this is a central understanding my entire field has come to, before I abandon it altogether, let's give it a shot. So I promised myself that as the semester ended and I had summer break coming up, I would devote 3 months to giving it a shot. And if I didn't feel any better, I would probably try to quit. Sure, there's neuroplasticity. Sure, the brain's capable of changing, but you've got to follow some kind of exercise or therapy or something. So at that point, I decided to try meditation and bought a little book called Meditation for Beginners with a CD in it. And I thought, okay, this is easy enough. It's a small book. I just read it, and there's CDs, and I follow it. And so I just committed to doing one of the exercises every day. And about probably a month and a half into this, I realized that I did not have numbing and tingling in my teeth anymore, that I could speak, that I was showing up and noticing my child more, having better conversations with my husband, and I felt categorically different.
So when you do notice something coming up, what is that? Going back to, oh, actually that's just kind of a butterflies in my tummy. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be depressed. It's just butterflies in my tummy. And so really being very clear about teasing this whole, if it's depression, teasing it apart into little manageable components. So you do have that, oh yeah, grumbling in my stomach, chest, maybe, feeling that breathing. So you're just kind of noting that, the thoughts that go with it. Obviously, often they all come simultaneously, so it's very hard to tease it apart. But as long as you can keep tracking your experience, there's more chance of being less overwhelmed by it. So just being fully present with whatever's going on for you just helps you to kind of keep pace with it and realize that, again, it isn't all that there is. It's, oh, and this too.
Now you're saying, well, actually, let me look at this for a moment. Let me look at this difficult emotion that's here. Now, it takes a lot of courage to go like this because our brain is telling us this is something really to be scared of or to get away from. But let me look at this for a moment and investigate it. Be curious about it. With a beginner's mind, this idea of noticing this feeling as if for the first time, and watch it as it ripples and resonates throughout my body. Notice the thoughts that come with it. And what we start to understand is that there's a temporariness to this feeling that's here.
Just being confident in your own presence and confident that if you hold the attention calmly, that things will naturally settle.
And learning how to wrap that feeling in a sense of and kindness and compassion, in a sense of just being aware and being curious about it and noticing how it comes, it peaks and goes away.
It's not so much things pass. It's important. I want to be clear that I don't mean things pass, that moments pass. We only live one moment at a time, and moments pass. And just because the experience in a particular moment, in this moment, is painful, it doesn't mean it will be painful in the next moment.
That takes real courage and a certain degree of faith at first to be willing to do that. But there is this possibility that when you are able to stay with it, as opposed to doing habitually what you've done is to try to run away from it or argue back from it or try to control it in some way, and realizing that the trying to control is actually the problem, then this opening up happens.
If we are willing to experience the moment however it is, we're much more likely to experience the next moment skillfully, which is open-heartedly. If I have back pain, which I had this week, if the pain is a little bit less in the next moment than it is in this moment right now, and if I'm just like clenched and trying to resist the pain, I miss out on the relief of the slightly waning intensity of the pain in the next moment because I'm not paying any attention. So there's a relief in just letting it be.
As we discussed earlier in the class, just the hope, the possibility of something being different in the future, one day, that alone can be decisive in whether someone keeps trying.
Another girl I was working with, she struggled significantly with anxiety and especially an OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And she would have these intense obsessive thoughts, and her compulsion would be to self-harm. And as we began working together, what she found was this kind of resistance in the moment of, how do I stay with this anxiety? I want a pill to quickly fix it, and if not, then I'm going to have to hurt myself because it's really intense. And so we began a lot of mindful practices to stay present in one's body, to feel the emotion, but to allow it to go through us. She She went over 8 months without another incident of self-harm, with being symptom-free of the compulsion. And she found that she would still have the obsessions, and they would still be there, and she learned to talk about them differently as more mind clutter or mind chatter, and that it just was kind of this bad storm that was going through, and if she would just calm herself, that her mind would calm.
That chain reaction of reactivity, of impulse, of what it means to move from an uncomfortable reaction or emotion into some kind of destructive behavior, we actually believe that that's where the education needs to happen, to get people to slow down, to use breathing, to use sensation, to redirect attention. These are very simple skills, but even after 1 or 2 weeks, I mean, we've had youth that, they will come back and report, like, I was going to swing on them, and then I just felt my feet on the ground. I felt a breath. My eyes kind of opened wider. I saw the lights. I saw the other youth. I took a short moment of awareness. I was still pissed, but I didn't do it.
As I am in tune with my life, I can catch myself much sooner. So I don't have to experience these crazy highs and crazy lows. And that's not what brings passion and intimacy into life, the crazy highs and the crazy lows. Being present for everything, sort of a middle way. I've experienced a fullness in my life that I had never thought possible.
Any moment that they get, any moment of awareness that they're able to take in the stream of what has often been a very traumatized life, just in that moment is the potential for enormous change. And we've seen it so many times. Just given one moment of real insight into why they do something or how they're responding to a situation can really transform how they see the world.
I just started breathing. I just started sitting still. It's about 30 minutes a day. And it was really hard. It felt like the hardest work I'd ever done, really, to just sit still and really assess the damage and just see what was going on in my mind, in my body. After about 6 months, I noticed a really profound shift that I wasn't expecting, that I couldn't have expected. It was this feeling of my breath just kind of dropping. So it wasn't up in my chest so much, it was down in my belly. And this kind of electrical current that was surging through my body for perhaps all of adolescence, all of childhood. I didn't even really notice it was there. And I felt like the world was just inherently an agitating place. It wasn't until my freshman year of college that I really started to sit still, that I realized that it was my body, it was me who was agitated. And so as I just started to breathe and drop the breath, that kind of buzzing, it just started to cool off. And about 6 months into breathing exercises my freshman year of school, I was kind of walking the earth a new person. I felt significantly, subtly, but significantly different than that person who had started those exercises 6 months prior. And I just started to feel this really chill quality about my life that was totally foreign to me at that point.